Okay, good morning, everybody. Were you fooled by the inclusion of opening song to think that we were going to class this place up? Yeah, you thought wrong, because we're going straight to hell as we normally do. Yes, hello, everybody. It's Larsen Live, and we opened up with the flower duet, Blumenduett by Leo Delibes. Leo Delibes' seminal opera, seminal in both ways, Lacme. And this, you might be more familiar with the song from Homer Simpson's boxing montage, which played as he fought in the Ass Box, the Association of Springfield Semi-Pro Boxers, with his boxing skills of having a very hard head. Biff Slankovich says that figures. It does not, sir. There are several methods to my madness, which we will get into. But yeah, I'm saying that, the lay person, not myself, of course, because I'm a temporarily embarrassed aristocrat. And, but yes, you plebeians, you probably know this song from The Simpsons. Okay, Homer, he's tired. Nudge him. Nudge him. And then Homer went up the ranks of the car washes. They went to Mega Tycoon Wash. But yes, that song is, of course, from Lacme, the opera by Leo Delibes, a French composer. Lacme is, of course, best known as that opera that's pretty much the same thing as Madame Butterfly, but set in India. I was going to use the aria from Madame Butterfly, but a previous stream already made the joke about "Don't cry for me, I'm already dead," which is, of course, referring to Barney Gumbel's use of the song in his independent film about how alcoholism has ruined his life. You see, I am a very cultured and sophisticated man. I just choose to intersperse it with Simpsons references and vague sex jokes. But yeah, this does tie directly into the title of the stream. Messrs. Gerald and Pinkerton are now on the woke left. What does this mean? Well, I'm sure there's a very high overlap between fans of opera and fans of Larsen Live, and this is exactly why I have, such mainstream appeal, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But, yeah, let's just get right to it. So, the New York Times Magazine has a new article in their ethical section, The Ethicist. This is the headline. As a white man, can I date women of color to advance my anti-racism? The magazine's ethicist columnist on interracial dating as a socio-political strategy. And that's where all this talk of opera and, penile colonialism ties in. You see, because these operas I'm referring to are all about, white men dating women of color to advance sociopolitics. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I don't quite think that's the way the ethicist intended, but that's exactly how I interpreted it. Because, again, much like Orson Welles, I am quite capable of tying together high and low cultures in a rich tapestry of intercultural understanding. I mean, I could talk about this article, or I could talk more about opera. Obviously, these two operas I'm referring to, Lacme and Madame Butterfly, are, the ground zero of Asian sex bullshit, which I talk about pretty frequently. As some of you may remember, because I'm sure all of you slavishly, follow what I do in my private time, me and the lovely Daphne went to see Madame Butterfly at the Metropolitan Opera. It was very good. If you can get tickets, I recommend it. But, yeah, the first act ends, and, like an idiot, I didn't know you could turn on the subtitles until the second act. So, I, of course, knew more or less what the story was about. But, yeah, we're just kind of sitting there like, headless chickens, listening to the nice music and not understanding what's being said. But I lean over to my wife, and I'm like, boy, I sure hope nothing bad happens. Wink, wink. And, needless to say, bad things did happen. But apparently, pumping and dumping women of color is the good thing to do, as long as you're doing it to advance anti-racism. I don't understand this logic myself. One tweet says it best. The really interesting question is whether or not, as a white man, you can date women of color specifically to advance your racism. And that's personally what I'm interested in. Kidding, of course. Let's see. I don't know how exactly this is going to work. I should probably open up this article. I mean, I should also point out that several prominent women of color seem to be advancing this exact same strategy, as the most ferocious and loud and angry women of color seem to exclusively date white men. This is an interesting phenomenon, and as I look up this article exactly, let's see, advice on life's trickiest questions from the New York Times Magazine, from the philosopher Kwame Anthony Appiah. I'm going to assume this is not the white man who is writing this article. Oh, for God's sake, I gotta pay for this. To the archive. To the Larsen mobile. But yeah, this is a very curious phenomenon that nobody seems to be able to understand. Why do militantly angry women of color seem to exclusively hop on every white cock they see? As they say, you're radical in the streets, beer colonized in the sheets. Why is this? Nobody's really been able to know for sure. I was actually planning on doing a video on it at some point if I can ever, stop being hemmed in by my normie jobs, the two of them, to actually make some videos. I write down little ideas of what I should be doing for videos, and yet, just life finds a way to get in my way. Maybe during spring break. But anyway, if I had to guess, it's because, all these, Reconstructionist history classes or whatever go on and on about the evil, rapacious, blue-eyed devils ravaging and pillaging, the fluttering womb of brown lands. And, as we know, quite a few women are turned on by that sort of thing. Some women, not all women, but some women do like to be ravaged, have their bodices ripped, and, get thrown over the shoulder of some, sweaty unga-bunga, or, sweaty, Mousterian, Cro-Magnon, blue-eyed devil or whatever. And, these wires kind of get crossed in their heads, and it's all just, it's all an elaborate, rape fetish. That's just my 2 cents. Let's look at some comments here. I don't know if everybody's just horrified of what I'm speaking about. Tim Adams says, Asians, much like my Jewish friends, have the strange condition of being non-white or white depending. I assume you mean white sympathetic or white adjacent. Oh, I misread that totally. Yes, well, I mean, Jewish people are, white. I mean, they're predominantly European, or at least the ones we have in the West. That's more of a political thing. But yes, Asians, I don't think Asians really... Yeah, I don't think Asians really went out of their way to, be considered white. I think they just kind of get thrust into the, white adjacency sphere because, they do white people things like studying and taking care of their children and not committing crime. Now, of course, this is not to say that Asians don't commit crime. It's a bit more organized. It's sort of, mafia-ish, triads, yakuza, whatever. You don't see, you don't really see Asian brappies just spazzing out and, punching old ladies in the face. At least not from what I've seen. Alpha Maria says, the colonizer means winner. Yes, and the ladies do love a winner. Ponythroat says, he heard the Blumenduett in Piranha 3D, truly a work of class and refinement. Is it as good as Piranha 2 The Spawning, James Cameron's directorial debut, though? I haven't actually seen either. My wife and really my entire extended in-laws, they really love shark movies, but we haven't seen too many Piranha movies. we'll have to amend that at some point, I think. Anyway, yeah. Let's read this article. Okay, so this is the ethicist columnist. I think this is like, yes, this is written by Kwame Appiah. He's taking letters from the readers. So this writer writes in, I'm a straight white dude. Of course, he doesn't refer to himself as a man, because of course he doesn't. Okay, he wants to have a family. Here's what's controversial amongst my friends. I want to prioritize dating women of color. I'm after a cross-cultural relationship. I believe that one of the main ways to combat racism is through relationships. Again, I would dispute that. Okay, okay, I'm dedicated to educating myself on issues of racism, sexism, other forms of kyriarchy, which is a very pompous way of saying, oligarchy. Okay, okay, as my friends have suggested, this preference may be wrong or insensitive or somehow itself racist. Is this the case? So says Anonymous. Okay, a few cautions, though. The ethicist replies, you might be hasty in conflating interracial with cross-cultural. It sounds as if you prefer to make life with somebody who basically shares your values, doesn't have to Google words like kyriarchy. Okay, at this point, I can't read further because the New York Times has caught on to my brilliant idea of using proxies. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, love who you love, date who you want. I don't judge, but I could see this getting really weird really quick. This could be either like a weird sexless relationship where they just sit around holding hands and quoting, Ta-Nehisi Coates before breakfast and dinner, which is pretty weird in and of itself. Or it could go hard in the other direction, where they do like elaborate, grotesque race play in which, name withheld, the dweeby white man in question is forced into role-playing as a plantation massa or a British colonizer or whatever, depending on what his partner's into, and it could get weird. Okay. Tim Adams says, ha. Shinseki Evans says, the dude is a fetishist. Alpha Marigis says, speaking of shark movies, it was a missed opportunity to not have the main character of Sharknado fight a kung fu environmentalist mad at him for killing the sharks. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't. I mean, wasn't a Kurt Angle in one of those Sharknadoes? You could have had a kung fu versus wrestling match. Ponythroat says, never ask a Stormcloak the race of their wife. I mean, honestly, with Stormcloaks, it could be species, if you know what I mean. Stormcloaks love that Khajiit-Tussi. Alpha Marigi says, I know what the word means, but I don't share Prague values. It sounds normal to me. Yeah, I don't know, like, the quickest way to make this weird is to, constantly check your privilege as you lay into the, the brown vag or whatever. And just FYI, I feel like most women of color don't really like this. The only ones who do are like the hard leftist, ones who probably get off on sort of stomping on, a white man's nuts. Oh, and by the way, wouldn't you know it, Kwame Appiah is a gay man whose husband is the very white Henry Finder, married in 2011. Because of course it is. Also, I'm not entirely sure that this idea of, like, if we have mixed race children, that'll end racism. Really? You think so? Let me introduce you to this thing called Costa, sir, and Blancamiento. It's not going to work like that. But, again, like, you want to be who you're with, that's cool. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you want to date interracially, literally just treat them the same way you would treat anyone else. That'll get you much further than all this, himmy haw, like, douchebag crap. Okay. Tim Adams says, it puts the lotion on its skin kind of moment. Yes. It puts the shea butter on its skin or else it gets the hose again. I'm not even going to try to do Ted Levine's voice. I'm not very good at it. It puts the lotion on its skin. Nah, that's not good. Ponythroat says, Tariq Nasheed is currently monopolizing all the men willing to LARP as plantation owners. Yes, Tariq Nasheed loves being buck-broken. Tim Adams says, if it's alternative lifestyle, so okay. I mean, I'm not against any of it. Like I say, I don't really care who you date, who you sleep with, etc. Just don't make a whole, political rigmarole out of it. It's not that big of a deal. Anyway, to bring this all the way back to what I started talking about, Madam Butterfly. Speaking of butterflies, and also from the looks of them, speaking of terrible dysgenic experiments in race mixing, whoops, sorry. Yes, I know we're kind of starting on Twitter silliness early today. We usually do this near the end. But this is incredibly stupid, and I couldn't resist the butterfly to butterfly pun here. Seo-san. Anyway. Yes. From the New York Post. A teenager apparently injected himself with crushed butterfly. He spent 7 agonizing days in the hospital, and then he died. I don't even know where to begin here. What kind of a cretin injects himself with a... was it at least liquefied, or was it like solid? I don't know. Okay, speaking of Blancamiento, this wasn't in America, so thank God for that. Okay, a Brazilian teenager, a Davi Moreira, he suffered excruciating pain over the week in a hospital in Vitória de Conquista. Boy, all this anti-racist race mixing just keeps coming back. He mixed up a dead butterfly with water and he injected it into his leg. Why would he do so? Perhaps it was a social media challenge. Yes, a specialist at the Hospital Santa Marcelina speculated that Davi may have suffered from an embolism, an allergic reaction in his veins, says Brazilian media. Could also have just been air in the syringe. Okay, the picture they used was a nice monarch butterfly. I don't know if they even live in Brazil. I thought they didn't really go much further south than Mexico. But, yes, incredible stupidity from the teenagers. I mean, the kid has a broccoli head haircut, so I wasn't expecting much intelligence from him. Boy, there's just butterfly-related stupidity all around. Okay. Alpha Marigi says, why do black men only watch anime about buff men hitting each other? Replies filled with Tariq Nasheed's picture. I mean, I'm sure there's some dudes who watch One Piece or... Wait, not One Piece. Azumanga Daioh is what I was trying to say. I don't know how I mixed those two up. From what I gathered, the only people who watch K-On! Are, like, internet fascists. Okay. Ponythroat says, this very stupid Brazilian boy is trying to get superpowers to become the villain known as the Monarch. do not insult the monarch by associating with this idiot. The monarch is a very good standing member of the Guild of Calamitous Intent, sir. A little air bubble in your syringe is a treat. Perhaps you shouldn't be injecting yourselves with things at all. Oh, speaking of, also in the link, an Australian teenager, Sam Ballard, gobbled up a slug and he ate it. And he died. Because the slug had a rat lungworm disease. It was a parasitic worm, and it killed him. So, to any young people listening, please don't, eat or inject or in any way ingest wild animals. Yeah, fun fact, in ADOM, one of my favorite video games, Ancient Domains of Mystery, you can actually eat butterflies, and I believe, if I remember, I got mildly sick, but I didn't, I didn't die. If I recall correctly, I died many times in that game before I beat it eventually. And to any ADOM heads in the chat, yes, I know I didn't get the true ending, but I'll do it eventually. Okay. Tim Adams says melanin. I need to inject melanin. Just go out in the sun, sir. You'll get some. Alpha Mariga says, I just learned King Callus from Doralis and Associates was based on the Monarch. I have no idea what that is. Ponythroat says, the real thing that killed him was the fact he mixed the butterfly with Brazilian tap water. Yeah, probably. Anyway, yeah, let's talk about politics now. It was nice to take a break from American stupidity. Let's go right back to that. Let's see. So, the Trump administration is still doing its thing, and people are not happy about it. So, something that's been going around in the news recently is people are talking about censoring free speech. So says CBS Face the Nation, the Holocaust would not have happened if they didn't have absolute free speech in Germany. Yes, the Holocaust was conducted not with gas chambers, but with free speech zones. Yes, the famous champion of free speech, Adolf Hitler. This is, of course, Margaret Brennan, the woman that J.D. Vance kind of shut down verbally. I don't know. Do these people ever take a step back and realize the idiocy they're saying? Yes, famous free speech champion Adolf Hitler, best known for having open dialogue in his country. How do these dumbasses manage to breathe? I don't know. Okay. Ponythroat looks around to see if anybody got the reference. To Brazilian tap water? I don't know. Okay, Alpha Maria says Doralis and Associates was a web cartoon, a fantasy comedy. I might check it out. Looks kind of interesting. Yeah, the only thing I ever watched on The Escapist was, I hate to say it, but I did used to watch Movie Bob a long time ago, and then I realized how shitty he was. Biff Slankovich asks, has Trump cut the staff in the Grand Canyon National Park? I don't know. However, Trump is talking about auditing Fort Knox. So says the POTUS. We're going to go to Fort Knox, the fabled Fort Knox, to make sure the gold is there. This is very fitting because in the video where he said this, he was standing next to White House Communications Director Stephen Chung. It's very fitting that Trump is going to go to Fort Knox because this man looks disturbingly like Oddjob. He doesn't have the hat, and yeah, I know Harold Sakata was Japanese, not Chinese, but still, he's a very large, kind of rotund man who nonetheless looks like he could break someone's skull in half. Let me just pull up Stephen Chung here. Okay, just let me get the image file going. Yes, you'll see pretty soon why the best comment in that Twitter thread was basically, this is a man who looks like he was born to stand behind somebody and look angry as that other person says, where the fuck is my money? You know, some men get to do what they were born to do, and this man, his job was to be, you know, a goon, like a skull crusher. This man's job was to stand behind a sitting Donald Trump and just glower and look angry as Donald Trump asks very calmly, where the hell is my money? Robert Diaz says the Holocaust happened because of a mentally weak Germany post-World War I. Yes, to an extent, I feel like the circumstances of post-World War I Germany were a bit unique. I mean, it was the combination of being humiliated in war combined with a, you know, long-standing German interest in the occult, combined with, again, speaking of long-standing German interest in weird, perverse sex things, combined with the racism of the time and humana, you know, Nazism. Alpha Marigi says the fact that Germany would rather ally themselves with China, which does have camps, now then allowing somebody to say that, quote, Hitler did nothing wrong, says a lot. Yes. Punisher says maybe the message I was referencing got yeeted by YouTube. Tim Adams says, I was stationed at Fort Knox very briefly. Not going to like the results of the audit. I'm starting to suspect that as well, sir. Ponythroat said, I said if you inject melanin, you just become the Punisher. The Punisher is ethnically Italian, sir. He's not a person of color. Bislankovich says Cobra Kai and again with new episodes. Yeah, I know. I do have to watch those. Shinseki Evans says, what if it's discovered that there is no gold? Wouldn't the USA be ruined? I mean, I feel like Fort Knox doesn't have that much gold in it. Like, the reserves are not that high, and I think there's other gold reserves, too. I mean, it will be a bit of a bloody nose. Ponythought says that's what North FC would look like if he was Asian. Yes, Nanjing FC, if you will. Biff Slankovich says conditions of the Weimar Republic are identical to today. Oh, it's been Weimar for a while, sir. But yes, I don't know. A part of me is very amused at the fact that Donald Trump, when attempting to audit Fort Knox, found Odd Job and, like, brought him with him. I mean, not to be outdone, Donald Trump does look quite a lot like Gert Frobe, the man who played Auric Goldfinger. So, you know, it all fits. And then the Twitter thread is full of pictures of, you know, Harold Sakata, Toru Tanaka, and other, you know, large, thick-set Asian men who scare people in movies. Again, some men are just born to be nicknamed Moose and stand behind angry men. He has found his job, and, you know, I respect that. course, Harold Cicada won the silver medal at the 1948 Olympics. I'm curious as to how much Stephen Chung could clean and jerk. I bet he could put up pretty decent numbers. Donald Trump also appointed Tom Homan to run ICE. So, I think it makes sense. Donald Trump's been doing real estate in New York for decades. I think deep down he knows that if you want to get shit done, you got to kind of hire like kind of slightly hunched over, thick-set bald men to look mean and intimidating. He probably picked this up from the, mafia cohorts that he's done business with many a time. I mean, there was a documentary that purported to reveal those things, but Donald Trump paid millions of dollars to not, have it air. I could do this the whole rest of the stream just quoting Goldfinger or, Rocky and Muggsy from Looney Tunes. I could entertain myself quite a lot with this. Shut up, shutting up. Oh my god, this Twitter thread referenced Shu Chu, courtesy name Zhong Kang, a Chinese general who became famous during the Three Kingdoms period. He started out his career as a bodyguard to Cao Cao and became a general in the state of Wei. He was described to be a big, strong, yet simple-minded man. The foolish tiger by his men. He was over 8 chi tall, or 1.86 meters, which is, I think it's like 6'2". Yeah, about 6'1.5", with a thick-set waist. He was sturdy and imposing, was known for great strength and courage. Shu Chu was also known for grabbing an ox's tail and, dragging it along with him. Okay. Yeah, so very fascinating stuff. I can see why the Three Kingdoms period became so romanticized and the source was so much Chinese, folklore and culture. Tim Adams says, I remember when Italians, even the Irish, were not considered quite white. Well, they were never really considered non-white per se. I mean, did they face discrimination? Yes, but they were never segregated, and there was never laws permitting or forbidding intermarriage between wasps and Irish or whatever. So they were seen as I always like to say they were seen as lesser white or ethnic white, just from my perusals of American history. Pony Throat clarifies he was referring to a famous Punisher comic where he becomes a black man. I did not see this. Trump, Tim Adams says, Trump, this is my manservant, various tasks. Yeah, it's you got Odd Job, Stephen Chung, you got Judge Holden, Tom Homan. Yeah, Trump is goon maxing to the max. Biff Slankovich says, Two Gun Cohen. Yes, Two Gun Cohen was a Polish-born British man who became an aide-de-camp to Sun Yat-sen. Yes, there's quite a few rando Westerners who kind of adventure around the Orient, like Frederick Townsend Ward and Josiah Campbell. There was Bert Levi and so on and so forth. Tim Adams says, back to your cast references. Yes. But yeah, anyway, in conclusion, yes. If you want to get things done, you gotta get that gorilla physique men. Not just muscular dudes. You gotta get the kind of slope-headed, slightly hunched over, thick-set man, and you'll get shit done pretty quick. Okay, moving on from that. What else do we have? We are actually going to talk about James Bond a bit. later on. Let's see. I got a good amount of things to talk about. I had a productive week today. Speaking of the Trump administration, let's talk about the IRS. On Reddit, IRS employees were generally stunned. They were stunned that the general public hated them. Trump has been talking about, removing or at least severely auditing the IRS. So from Reddit Fed News, I never knew how much everyday people hated government employees until now. I'm going to pause for a second because I do want to read more about Two Gun Cohen, who, again, he's slightly more put together, but he does have that sort of, blockhead gorilla physique. Let's see, where was I? Oh, yes, anyway, so an IRS employee was apparently unaware that people hated him. I really didn't know how many people hated government employees until now. I see people celebrating layoffs and abrupt firings. It's been jarring, to say the least. I even saw somebody say they hope the government shuts down and there's no back pay. To be honest, it's kind of sickening. You didn't know people hated the IRS. I'm sorry, how much of a bubble do you have to live in to not know that people hate the tax man? Like, have you been unaware of... How could you be this unaware of popular culture? There's one for you, 19 for me. Tax man. Whoa, I'm the tax man. And so on and so forth. Like, have you never heard of penny auctions? Like, are you not aware of the long history of tax protests in the United States? Are you not, speaking of The Simpsons, are not aware of when they went on tour to Washington, D.C. and Homer yelled at the IRS and then a bunch of employees opened up their windows and yelled back at him? Who do they blame? They blame Ronald Reagan. This has been the result of a 40-year war on the governments. In 1981, Reagan called government the problem. This is the natural result of those decades of rhetoric. I mean, far be it from me to judge somebody for blaming things on Reagan. I blame everything on Reagan, but come on, he didn't start hatred of, the tax collection. It's just, I mean, geez, you talk about living in a bubble. People have always hated the tax man. There's literally cuneiform tablets from ancient Sumeria, making jokes about the tax collectors. How do you not know this? I mean, personally speaking, I've always been a supporter of a flat tax. Everybody should pay, in my opinion, 25% of their income. And that's it. You got to make sure that the rich, they don't bullshit their way out of it with putting their money into real estate or equities or, stocks or anything. You audit them and you take 25% of whatever, dividends or whatever they make every year. But yeah, flat tax in my opinion. I actually had this worked out at some point. If you were to take 25%, honestly, from every, working American citizen, you'd get pretty close to what our nominal federal budget is now. Except everybody would have more individual money in their pocket. But that's neither here nor there. Okay. Let's see what we have going on. So, more to do on. Let's check out some comments first. Okay. Pinkerton says, anybody else think Judge Holden is just a fatter, slightly better written Jeff the Killer? Yeah, a little bit. Tim Adams says, James Bond was a definite post-colonial British supremacist moment. I mean, it's more of the British Empire trying to hold on to its relevancy, but that's neither here nor there. And yes, we'll talk about James Bond in a little bit. Tim Adams says hate is such a weak word for the absolute loathing and disgust we have for the tax man. Yes, if the word hate was written on each nano-angstrom of every cell of your body, it wouldn't equal 1/1,000,000th of the hate you feel for the tax collector. Anyway, yes, speaking of the Trump administration, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is suing Trump over immigration and refugee funding freeze. As we know, there's been a massive freeze on U.S. aid funding, and apparently quite a lot of the people bringing in illegal immigrants to this country are getting money from U.S. aid. The Catholic Church is upset that Trump is cutting their funding. You know, somewhere down in hell, I'm sure Bill Poole is looking up and smiling. Yes, also, give me a point for referencing Bill the Butcher on my show. Perhaps the know-nothings had a point. Native Americans, beware of foreign influence. Well said. I mean, personally, I could, assemble a band of crusty bitches and ragtags to fight this Roman popery in the name of the true God myself, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, Pony Throat says, I love the term nano-angstrom. Yeah, it's pretty good. May the Christian Lord guide my hand against your Roman popery. Yes, well said, Bill. Yeah, speaking of discrimination against the Irish and Italians. See, it all ties back. See, it all ties together. Point of Thought says, if you were in hell, you don't need to look upward to find various high-ranking members of the Catholic Church. One meant more in the sense of, William Poole looking up from hell and just smiling at the state of the Catholic Church openly kind of spitting in the face of the American president. I mean, it would be a sardonic smile, certainly, since this is exactly what he fought for, he would say. And needless to say, William Poole is deep, deep in hell. He was not a great man, but he fought for his principles if nothing else. But yes, there's quite a few members of the church there as well. I don't give a two-penny fuck about your moral conundrum, you meat-headed shit-sack. Whoopsie-daisy! Yeah, I should watch Gangs of New York again. But I digress. Yeah, speaking of issues with the church and the American government and such. Okay, yes, Europeans are very upset at the thought that America might be shutting off, the Gibbs. Yeah, J.D. Vance had some things to say about Germany and other European countries stifling free speech. And, at the slightest thought that America might pull out of some military bases and leave the continent to do its own dirty work, everybody's upset. So says Andrew Perpetua, who is from, the United Kingdom. He says, and I quote, "The U.S. is the enemy of the free world now. You need to accept that. You have to do something about it. You are one of the bad guys now." Oh, please, don't act like... Sir, with all due respect, don't act like you loved America up until, the election of Trump, okay? You hated us when we were isolationists. You hate us now that we're getting involved. I always say, let's call their bluff. Let's leave the military bases. Let's close down everything. Let's stop the flow of money. Because they hate us, but they sure do love our money and, sending corn-fed farm rednecks to go fight for them. They love that. Yeah, perhaps by free world he means the world where you get free stuff from the American taxpayer. Some Europeans are in agreement with me. So says it's Dot. Says, I want America to leave. I want us to, defend ourselves again. This Greek gentleman says, yeah, good for him. I personally do find it very funny that this is how they react when, we make the slightest suggestion of, not defending them. I think the world would like us more and they'd be much better off if we didn't get involved in all this neo-imperialist crap. We'd be better off. The world would be better off. Personally. Let's check out some comments here. Robert Diaz says, imagine if Sweden had to pay for the defense budget. I mean, you can say that about most of Europe and pretty much all the G7 wealthy countries, actually. They have all their precious health care and all their fancy entitlements because America pays for them. Oh, and by the way, this person blocked comments because, God forbid somebody challenge his opinion. Okay. Speaking of the European Union, the European Union greenlights worms in the food, signed by Ursula von der Leyen, the health minister of the European Union. There are you can have small amounts of mealworm powder in common food products, up to 4 grams of worms per 100 grams of food, without clear labeling for consumers. It's about sustainable protein. I'm not against this necessarily. I just want things to be clearly labeled. I want people to know when you're eating the bugs. Because while I do support, cheap and, relatively healthy protein, I'm also against this for A, lying to people, B, some people have chitin allergies, which can act up. And, yeah, this, it's not good. I mean, like, mealworms and things would actually be better and healthier than some of the fillers and garbage they put, in meats and things now. I mean, it should be an option, but it shouldn't be forced upon people. So says Zero HP Lovecraft. Rule by old ladies is the worst political system ever conceived, and there's nothing close to it. Yeah, a little bit. Eat the bugs, Wagey. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the crime beat before we get to the silly side of things. Tim Adams says, how does Sweden pay for the 14 fighter jets they actually own? I don't know, nor do I care. Tim Adams says, the bugs, not to mention the toxicity of chitin. Yes, chitin should only be used in chicken feed and making suits of armor that are affordable, like in the Elder Scrolls. Pointy Thought says, never let the UK in particular decide what protein is acceptable. That's how you get prion diseases. Yes, we all remember the mad cow scare. But yes, in the crime beat, in Michigan, A young boy named Owen Burns saved his 8-year-old sister from being kidnapped. He pulled out his slingshot, a wrist rocket to be specific, and fired multiple marbles and rocks, hitting the guy in the head until he ran away. Bravo, sir. You know, this is the wholesome Americana right there. I mean, what could be more American than a slightly pudgy but spry and athletic young boy whipping out his slingshot and defending little girls from predators? A slingshot company, the Daisy Company, also provided him with a new slingshot. More specifically, it was the Daisy Company. I have a wrist rocket myself somewhere. It's a lot of fun. At some point, I also want to, I also macramade myself a sling once, or braided, whatever the hell it's called. It's good stuff. The children should be encouraged to use slingshots and slings. It's good fun. Unfortunately, this thread has many people who don't know the difference between a sling and a slingshot. Please learn the difference. It may save your life one day. But yes, good show, Mr. Burns. Okay, in technology news, there is the Protoclone, the world's first bipedal musculoskeletal android. It is, so says Clone Robotics from Atherton, California. It is a faceless, anatomically correct synthetic human with 200 movements, degrees of freedom, 1,000 simulated muscle fibers, myofibers, and 500 sensors. I don't know why this thing has to be hanging from a meat hook, like some kind of like Neon Genesis Evangelion, like fallen angel. I'm gonna have nightmares about this thing, to be honest. It's man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. Yeah, somebody please get the Lance of Longinus. I don't know, did nobody in this... I don't know if you guys saw this, but did anybody in, like, the company say, hey, boss, maybe we shouldn't have this twitching humanoid robot hung on meat hooks with, like, flickering light and Hans Zimmer music in the background? It's full on, like, Hans Zimmer, like, dun, 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 blah, music. Yeah, this is going to go over great. Not sure what exactly they're trying to do here. Other than, create man-made horror beyond comprehensions. Are we one step closer to anatomically correct and functioning sex robots? Yes. Yes, we are. Not to be outdone, Clone Robotics also has other things like Torso 2 with actuated abdominal muscles. I'm going to go on the company website. Let's see, something about the company. Okay, let's see. So this is a company that seems to be joint based in Poland and the United States. So, unfounded American optimism combined with the existential horror of Eastern Europe. What could possibly go wrong? Everything. That's what. Okay. Tim Adams says, wrist rocket, that dude is lucky to be alive. Yes, wrist rockets, they're pretty deadly. I mean, it was a kid, so he probably can't pull back that strong, but Yeah, those things, they can hit pretty nasty. Ponythroat says, chitin armor is low-tier trash, but the steal the armor from the endless stream of Assassin's Tribunal added, rendering other armor pointless. Alpha Rodriguez says, John Oliver's pro-IRS piece acknowledged that people hate the tax man. He showed a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire clip where a contestant got booed for working at the IRS. Ponythroat says, sling is David, slingshot is Dennis the Menace. Yes, a sling is a deadly weapon. A slingshot can hurt people, but it's mainly for bratty children. Bart Simpson and Dennis the Menace use slingshots. Tim Adams says, the Terminators are here. It solves the Army recruitment problem. If I recall correctly, the first Terminators, like the T-101s, were like these kind of derpy-looking tank robots, which I'm surprised we didn't get those first. Ponythroat says, why bother trying to simulate human muscle fibers? Machine accuration would surely be more effective. Well, I mean, it would be more effective in, mechanical efficiency and things, but it wouldn't be as effective in, giving people nightmares, clearly. So looking at the company website, seems like the art design, like 3D art and the parametrics, are done in Poland, but the actual programming and assembly and firmware and engineering and robot learning is done in Sausalito or Palo Alto or wherever, California. Again, it's the bright and sunny optimism of the Bay Area combined with the Kafka-esque horror of Eastern Europe. Goes together like a glove. All right. So, if this would work, let's go to the silly side of things. As if we haven't been there already. So, first of all, in internet news, Bonnie Blue, one of a disturbingly high number of women who are known for sleeping with many, many men in under 24 hours. She slept with more than 1,000 men in under 24 hours. She's reportedly pregnant. Who's the dad? Yeah, we have no idea. I have a couple of questions here. First of all, being impregnated by some vague assembly of 1,000 men. Is this not literally how Freddy Krueger was conceived? I'm pretty sure that is how Freddy Krueger was conceived. Let's just keep a very close eye on her child and make sure he doesn't, molest and murder children. Apparently Lily Phillips, the other woman who did this thing, she is also pregnant. This, so says Raw Egg Nationalist. Within the end of the year, she'll be, going cottagecore trad wife Wheatfield posting. Yeah, I can see it. Why can't I find a good man to take care of me? Yeah. Not the first time there's been OnlyFans stars and other skanks who, go trad real quick. Once their looks fade. Okay. Ponythroat says, behold, our new twitching pain golem, perfect to suspend in any Cenobite dungeon. It's going to be made a female pleasure droid named Homunculus. Yes. Call the baby Mr. Average. You'd be lucky if they don't call that baby the bastard son of 1,000 maniacs, if you know what I mean. Okay, in Hollywood news, Mark Hamill presented at the BAFTAs. His pants appeared to have fallen down to his knees. His voice got a bit shaky and suddenly started grabbing at his pants. A source said his trousers just dropped to his knees as if they were too big for him. All the big stars like Adrian Brody and Timothy Chalamet would have seen it from their angle. Most guests look horrified, but they said nothing. He's behind the podium. You do see him adjusting his pants. It's about a 20-second long clip. I'm gonna, watch. Okay, so yeah, he does kind of jerk and he pulls his pants up. The camera very wisely, stays above his waist. I gotta say, it's pretty funny to imagine a man's pants is dropping, like just boing. Oh, Hamill, can't you go 5 seconds without embarrassing yourself? Boing. How long was that, Yoda? Yeah, so these are, he was wearing tuxedo pants, and they're not worn with a belt. I mean, I was shocked, too, when I found out that tuxedo pants are not worn with belts. I believe your cummerbund is supposed to keep it up. I would have thought that a wealthy Hollywood, actor would have been able to afford pants that stay up. Or suspenders at the very least. And yeah, somebody posted the Simpsons thing. Okay. Arbor Diaz says she has a 1 in 1,000 chance of finding the dad. Maury is useless this time. Ponythroat says this baby is the human equivalent of when you empty the dregs of a drink into a bucket. Yeah. Okay. Moving away from Hollywood, we'll come back to that in a second. Let's talk about weirdo sex tourists in Asia. There were 2 instances that happened this week. 1 male and 1 female. So let's talk about the male first. A streamer, a racist gagan, some vaguely, looks kind of Arab, some pompadour wearing douchebag, went to Japan. He calls Asian men beta males. He goes to Japan and proceeds to get his ass handed to him. Much like Johnny Somali did in Korea. Basically, he went to Japan, started getting a little frisky with the girls, and a couple of Japanese dudes kicked his ass on the street. Okay, you're watching the whole video here. Some guy ran up to him, put his hands on him. The camera's shaking around wildly. Cuts away for a bit. He's basically, the one Japanese dude is basically sprawling out on top of him, peppering him with ground and pound. Then he runs away like a little bitch. I don't know who this person is. Who the fuck is Gagan? I mean, he's wearing, like, shitty low carat gold chains, because of course he is. Anyway, yeah, I found this pretty amusing. And I'm only halfway through the clip. I mean, I personally have, there's many things I criticize about Asian culture. It does tend to make men into beta males to an extent, in dweebs. However, it is strictly a nurture thing, not a nature thing. And if you piss a man off enough with sexual fury and resentment, it's going to kick in. And he will hand you your ass, sir. Even people in his stream were calling him a bitch and a pussy for running away. So, yes, this is the second vaguely brown shithead who went to Asia expecting to be, the cock king of the Orient and just got the shit kicked out of him. Good. I would like to see more of this. It's worth pointing out that this guy literally, the Japanese dude who kicked his ass was some little skinny guy in a turtleneck, and he just whipped his ass. not to be outdone by the men, the ladies also did some stupid shit in Asia. A woman who was a very big, K-pop, K-drama stan, went to Korea hoping to fall in love with an Asian man. She was disappointed by what she saw. What's going on here? Oh my god, you mean these regular Joe schlubs on the street don't look like, beautiful movie stars and TV stars? We've been catfished. It's very disturbing. I wish to leave immediately. I'm sorry, woman, are you really this goddamn stupid? Like, oh my god, wow, these men don't look like, airbrushed plastic surgery K-pop idols. I mean, I find this slightly less offensive than, the Johnny Somali Gagan thing. But, are you stupid, woman? Did you really expect that, random schlubs on the street would look like, beautiful men in television shows? I mean, this woman isn't exactly a prize herself. She looks like a dour, scowling schoolmarm. Like, I don't know what you were expecting. Like, this would be like, what if like a woman from another country came to America expecting every American man to look like Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise? Like, obviously that's not what happens, you moron. Somebody in the thread mentions how they did their school in the U.S. did an exchange with Germany, and a couple of girls were making fun of the American students because they don't look like the 25-year-old high school students in MTV shows. Like, I mean, those are high schoolers, so I guess I can understand why they'd be dumb, but this is like a 30-year-old woman. Like, Jesus Christ, these people are stupid. I mean, I didn't think K-pop stands were that dumb. Like, I've literally only known one K-pop stan in my life. And, this was years before I met my wife, so obviously I laid the pipe into her. But, that's neither here nor there. I mean, I don't know if the K-pop affected things, since I'm quite clearly not a, beautiful Korean boy K-popper. I mean, I'm closer to the, odd job sort of side of the Asian male spectrum. Alpha Rodriguez says mind over matter. Punchline says he found out too late the yellow peril was real. Yeah, he sure did. Pony Throat says K-pop stars don't even look like K-pop stars. Yeah, I know they're airbrushed and photoshopped to hell and back. Pony Throat says plastic surgery is extremely popular in South Korea, but it's mostly used by women. I believe the men get it too. The proceeds go towards paying for art commissions of 500-foot-tall Fox McClouds. I have no idea what you're referring to. I mean, I'm looking at the video, and these guys don't even look that bad. Like, they're just, it's literally comparing, like, prettified movie stars to just random schlubs. And, I mean, they don't look that different from, like, the stars. It's literally like what you would expect if, it's literally what you would expect if, you went to America expecting to find Tom Cruise and just found some random white dude. Sort of that degree of separation. Okay. Alpha Marigi says, my mom likes a K-pop fan, but she's also super feminist. She believes all the propaganda about Korean incels being turbo rapists. I mean, I mean, yeah, like Korea's got a problem with misogyny, but I think it's a two-way street since Korean women don't seem to be the most pleasant people in the world either. And finally, I said I would talk about James Bond, but yeah, Amazon basically owns James Bond now. Eon Productions is officially over. They've been running the movie franchise since the beginning. But now it's in Amazon's court. The Eon era is over. Thank you to Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson. 6 decades of James Bond. I hope Amazon MGM Studios doesn't turn into a cinematic universe. Yeah, they're going to turn into a cinematic universe. This is going to be absolutely horrendous. I mean, Amazon's run of shows hasn't been great. I mean, I'm really expecting they're just going to do to James Bond what they did to Lord of the Rings with Rings of Power, which is to say, run it into the ground. I mean, the thing that I'm always going to laugh at is how Amazon literally bought the rights to Conan the Barbarian because they wanted to make a show. They literally brought in like Robert Howard scholars and like Pulp Fiction scholars to consult. But then they also brought in a bunch of like castrating schoolmarms. And it was just like, war between the two groups, between the guys who wanted to make an accurate show and those who said, oh, Conan is too much toxic masculinity. It's too patriarchal. It's like, we got to change it. We got to make it for the modern audience. And like they couldn't come to see eye to eye. And then they just threw up their hands and they canceled the show. I'm really hoping that's what happens to James Bond. Like, they think like, it's too much toxic masculinity, and they just give up and just kind of throw their money down the toilet. Because either way, they're going to throw their money down the toilet. Because I don't have any hope for an Amazon James Bond. But at least with if you just buy the rights and then don't produce, you're going to waste some money. But if you do produce, you're going to waste more money, and you're going to embarrass yourself. And to be quite honest, having read some of the original James Bond books, I would argue that James Bond, as a literary character, is much more overtly toxically masculine than even Conan the Barbarian. Like, I mean, say what you will about Conan. Conan never, like, banged the lesbianism out of a woman like Bond does in the original novel of Goldfinger. Well, you see, old sport, you can't call it a jigger of whiskey anymore. You got to call it a G-Grow. That is an actual line of dialogue from Live and Let Die, I believe. Oh, to be a fly on the wall and, like, see some castrating feminist harridan reading the original James Bond books and having an aneurysm. Ponythroat says there's apparently a Korean surgeon who spends huge amounts of money on skyscraper-sized Fox and Falco fan art. Interesting. Robert Diaz says, rest in peace, Rust too, maybe. Rest in peace, James Bond. We're going to get trans feminist female James Bond. Yes. Yeah, Jane Box. Alpha Mariga says, this is why I disagree with Razorfist about IP. He's pro families owning the IP forever, but they all seem to sell it to corporations he hates eventually. I mean, yeah, I'm kind of in favor of, like, the public domain, to be honest. I get what Razorfist says, but again, IP and, like, the purity of the IP can only hold if you don't sell out to a corporation, and, they always do, eventually. And it's funny because Jeff Bezos is basically a James Bond villain, and he owns James Bond now. Oh boy, we're going to get, like, the whole Bond cinematic universe. We're gonna get James Bond movies and a Felix Leiter movie, and Jack Wade and Hawker the golf caddy. We're gonna get like the Book of Odd Job and Knick Knack. Actually, come to think of it, I would kind of love to see like a buddy comedy with like Odd Job and Knick Knack doing some kind of like adventure. Yes, this isn't going to be good. Yeah, so that does it for my prepared remarks. You can say your last pieces now, should you desire. Okay, Ponythroat says a random task cameo when. Yeah, you're gonna have to you have to get him out of prison to do a little work release to get him in a movie. Alpha Rodriguez says my street urchin roommate won't clean up after himself. Gah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, sir. I've had shitty roommates who don't clean up after themselves either. Ponythroat says, didn't Tolkien's ingrate grandchild sell out the franchise? Yes, he did. Christopher Tolkien, to his credit, did preserve the thing very well. But yeah, they all eventually sell out. I'm honestly surprised that this is obviously a very different franchise, but I'm honestly surprised that like Charles Schultz's grandkids haven't sold out Peanuts already. Because I know when they made the Peanuts movie in 2014, they were very strict on like what kind of things you could show. You're not gonna have like farts and stupid shit. But yeah, I'm surprised they haven't sold that out yet. And the only thing that's worse than that is when your idiot kid deliberately ruins it, like Brian Herbert did to Dune. Yeah, Alf Rodriguez says IP should be 1 year. Yeah, I agree with that. Like the idea that like you can hold IP as long as you want, but as long as you deliberately renew it every year. And if you lose it for 1 year, then then you lose it. So obviously you didn't care about it that much. Yeah. So again, say your last pieces now. Okay, Ponythroat says, isn't that why Sony keeps making the Fantastic Four movies? Yeah, I believe doesn't Marvel finally have the rights to that? I believe so. So again, say your last pieces. I'll be heading out pretty soon. Okay, Ponythroat says also circles black. Does that robot hanging while twitching simulate a black man? I don't know. I mean, it's pretty white. Alpha Rodriguez says there's a proposal to replace mother with inseminated person in legal documents. Yeah, I've heard that. I won't really comment on that unless it becomes a law or it doesn't. All right, doesn't seem like anyone else has anything to say. So for Larsen Halleck, this has been Larsen Halleck. All of you have a good day.